If you're an instructor looking to get started with the website, you want to first create an account so you can manage the assignments and keep track of student progress. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Create the account and then you'll want to log in. And so you're going down to teacher login instead of up here. Work in class is what your students will choose to start working in a class. Join a class is what your students are going to choose, and they need your class code as of the time of this video. That might change in the future to make it easier, but all they have to do is type in a class code that you give them. So you go to teacher login. So the first thing you probably want to do is create a new class. So this is where you'd select the textbook. Right now, as of this video, there's only 2. If the website looks like it's something that people will use, we'll add more. Choose the number of questions you want per topic. So the recommended means it's something that we've done behind the scenes. And so what this is saying is how many questions your students have to get correct before they can move on from a topic. So to get 100% on a certain topic, they have to get our recommended amount. And you can try it out and take a look at it. You could always delete the course and create a new course if you don't like it. But selecting 2 would mean students have to get 2 questions correct on every topic to get 100% on that topic. They can retry as many times as they want. There's no feature to say three strikes and you're out. There's features I'll show you in a bit that will stop students from working on their assignments temporarily for whatever time limit you set, just to prevent students from trying to just guess a bunch. But the idea of the website is that students can retry with a different version of the question again and again. So that's what this setting is. If a student is working on a topic, they get the question wrong 3 different times, not necessarily in a row, then they're going to be locked out for 30 minutes. Or you could set it so that students can get 5 questions wrong, and then when they're locked out, we're trying to get them to walk away from the computer and come back because they're locked out for an hour. So this is where you can decide whether the questions get harder as students start getting more of them correct. So for this setting, let's say I've got 3 questions that students need to get correct. They get question 1 right. This setting would mean that question 2 is going to be a little bit more challenging. They get question 2 right, then they're going to they have a higher likelihood of seeing the most challenging questions. And this one you probably want to set to do not email me, but in case you're really trying to crack down on the students that are gaming the system, you can say email me whenever our system has detected that a student is trying to answer questions. They're trying to randomize. They're not trying to randomize. They're trying to refresh the browser again and again to get a question version that's easy for them. You can have the system email you to give you a heads up so you can talk to the student. Okay, and then the other option is if you already have a class, like I already have class number 11, I could just copy an old class so I don't have to remake it every time. But if you hit create, class number is 12. So this is a number you want to write down because this is the number you give students. You say my class is class number 12. Students, all they have to do is type in 12 in the join class screen and they can be connected to your course. And this is where you can start editing your course. You can click view or edit class settings, and then if you have multiple classes you'll see this screen. Okay, so assessments, these are like tests or quizzes that you can make. So the website tries to make things easier by having a chapter assessment. These are usually heavy on questions. You'll probably want to load one of these and delete them, delete some of the questions on it. So I'll show you if I add this pre-made assessment. If I click edit, there's a lot of questions here, but it's because there's supposed to be 1 question from every topic. Now some topics obviously do a question and they can cover multiple topics. So let's say, let me zoom this out. Let's say on question 5, you've decided that you don't need this question. You can view it if you're not sure what this looks like. Question 5 is from section 1-1, so chapter 1, section 1, and it's use common divisibility tests. So chapter 1, section 1, use common divisibility tests. And you can say, oh, I know that question is being covered somewhere else. Where was I? So I'm going to delete question 5. Just make sure you submit when you're done saving it. But you can choose which ones you want to delete. And then when you copy your course next time, it will save all these settings for you too. And you can set a time limit. You can set a date that it should be due, and after that date the grades automatically update. You can add a password if you want. So That's how you'd edit an assessment. And so we have these pre-made assessments to try to save you time. But if you'd rather create your own, you can click Create Your Assessment. You can name it whatever name you'd like. And then you can click on the chapter, the sections, and then you can start deciding which questions you want to ask your student. And there's different versions of it too. So it usually it's based on the homework questions we see in the textbook. So question 0 of this type is usually the easiest. So if you go to question 7, that's something usually more challenging. So you can decide on which ones you want to add to your tests. And again, just make sure you hit Save Assessment at the end. You can delete them, copy them. The printing feature we're going to work on that doesn't look too good right now, but we'll try to make that better. So that's the Assessments button. The class settings I'll get into next. The other big thing that you want to know is how to check your students' grades. Right? So if you click Class Grades, you can either look at their assessment grades or look at their problem sets. We don't want to load both just because it's too many numbers on one screen. So there's a student in this class named Stuff, but this is where your student name would show up. And Stuff is having a hard time. They haven't done anything yet. Okay, that displays all their grades. One thing we could do is we could probably calculate a summary grade for each chapter if that would be easier too. I'll put that feature in. But you can download these grades as a comma separated value file. If you're not sure what that is, that just means it's going to work in a spreadsheet really easily for you. Let's see what else. That's pretty much it for the load assessment grade. We can put a summary, we can put a percentage rate here for the chapter grade, which we can make as an average of all the points available. And then we can do load assessments. This particular class just had one assessment. There's no grade, but this is where you'd see all your assessments and the grades per student. And you can actually click on the students' grades once they actually have one, and that will open up the assessment so you can see which questions this student Stuff got wrong. And then again, you can download those as a comma separated value. That's just something that'll work in Microsoft Excel for you. So those are the big things, giving students tests and quizzes, looking at their problem set grades. And then if you want to edit the class at all, you would want to go to class settings. So these are the big settings. You can receive an email if a student's like trying to game the system and they're hitting refresh a bunch. We have a system in place so that we warn the student. We say, please stop refreshing, because these randomizations, eventually it's possible they could get the same question that they memorized the answer to. It's unlikely for a lot of the questions, but if you'd like to be notified when a student is randomizing a lot, you can use that button. You can click this button so that those question types that I just showed you, we saw questions from 0 to 8. We can make it so that students have a higher chance of getting question 5 after they get questions like 0, 1, 0 or 1 correct. So as students start getting questions correct, if they're supposed to get multiple questions correct before they move on, the questions can get more difficult. So that's an optional setting. There's a lockout in place. So students have so if a student's trying to refresh a bunch of times, trying to get a certain version of the question that they like, we lock them out. But you can set this to whatever you want. You can set this to 0 so that students could try to game the system. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of randomization, so it's unlikely that's going to happen, but we're trying to prevent students from cheating as best we can. And then this is where you can set the number of wrong answers before a student gets locked out. So for the multiple choice questions, if a student's just clicking answers, we don't want to get them to the 3-question threshold correct, for whatever you've set. We don't want them to get that through random chance by just guessing. So you can say, hey, you got 3 questions wrong. You got to sit out for 15 minutes before you try this again. So those are all different settings you can adjust. Student settings, this is where you'd want to go to accommodate to make accommodations. You can change it so that your whole class has to have a 30-minute lockout, but this student is an honest student, and maybe there's some sort of accommodation in place where you don't want to lock them out, so you can set that to 0. You can change the due dates for individual problems for individual students. So if students are let's say there's a student with an accommodation where we want to give them more time, we can change the due date so that they're due October 25th, and when the rest of the class is due October 14th or something like that. Just make sure to save once you edit those settings. You can click and drag to edit multiple days all at the same time. So if I want to tell this student all of chapter 10, all of chapter 1 is due October 28th, I can click and drag, and I can click set selected due dates. It saves you some time. Or you could just click this up here. Okay, but here. That should unselect when you drag. Looks like it's not, but you can just click chapter 2, select all in the chapter, and then set selected dates for chapter 2. So that's a little quicker. Just make sure to save the student settings before you move on. Set number of questions. This is, again, I'm here for student stuff. So setting the number of questions they have to get correct would be here. Okay. Changing the assessment settings. So maybe there's a test, like this is chapter 1 test. We want to give them a different due date. We want to give them more time. That's where you could adjust these settings for the student. Okay. So if you need to make individual accommodations, you do it there. To remove students, obviously you click this link and you can click their name to remove the student. And then editing questions, this button is just in case you want to change, okay, every question, they're supposed to get 2 right. I'm going to change it so that they just have to get one question correct before they move on. Round whole numbers, I want them to do a lot of that, so I'm going to say they have to get 5 questions correct before they move on. And then we'll just want to save. I think, yeah, the save button is down here. So watch out with that setting because if you adjust it, it's going to reset everything for the student. So you want to make this edit before the class begins. Okay. I think that's it for the editing side of the class. Yeah, that looks like everything, but deleting class, that gives you a couple heads up so that you don't delete it on accident. Trying to think. I think that's it. Let me post the email again. It's in the About Us page, but we're small right now. We're a small website, so if there's features that you think need to be adjusted or if there's glitches that you find, you can email us at thequickmath123@gmail.com. That will change assuming we do get bigger, but at the time of this video, we're not sure what's going to happen. So yeah, that's how you can email us. We'll be happy to get back to you and help you out.